Bridget Mancini. I am the Ravalli County Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator for the DNRC.
Wow,
Yes, mouthful.
you're leading the league in title, I think.
Yes.
I'm
till we
Howard
get-
Elbert from the Conservation District.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Anna, do you want to go really quick? Sure, I'm gonna get near a microphone real quick. Anna Bateson, I work in the Bitter National Forest and I do forest fire prevention.
I'm Krista Mortensen. I'm with the DNRC, the Southwestern Land Office, which covers Ravalli County. I'm the Community Preparedness and Fire Prevention Specialist. We do not do short titles. Position titles.
I am Rick Donovan. I work at the University of California in Irvine.
They don't need to see you.
Hamilton, Montana. Long-time Beta River.
Can I talk now?
Long-time California. Transplant here, COVID refugee.
My name is Ron Eli. I'm a former fire chief for Hamilton and former state legislator. And I became aware of these meetings and stuff. And so curious to see what's happened in the last 10 years and see what we got going as far as fire prevention.
Thanks.
Judy Anderson, resident forest landowner.
Mike Kent, retired emergency services, currently realtor in the Bitterroot Valley and also on the Bitterroot Valley Board of Realtors as a state director.
Raylene Gall, retired Forest Service, currently on Victor Fire Department.
Byron Bonnie, retired Forest Service and community forester for Bitterroot Resource Conservation and Development.
Ken Brewer, retired Forest Service, Florence Fire.
Let's see. Abby, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, can you hear me fine?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. I'm Abby Josie. I'm new to the Forest Service just since November. I'm the district ranger for the Darby-Sula Ranger District. Calling in from home tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Abby. Next, we got Anne Marie Scott.
Hey, I'm with Team Rubicon, a disaster response organization, and we're focusing now on mitigation efforts wherever we can.
Awesome. Thank you. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey, Brian Adams, Hamilton Fire.
Awesome. Next, we got Dan.
Hi, everyone. Dan Pliley, West Fork Ranger District. I'm the district ranger there.
Awesome. Good to have you. David, I've got you next.
Good morning, Dave Tingley, or good evening, Dave Tingley, fuel specialist with the Bitterroot National Forest.
Awesome. Thank you. Got Eric Hoover.
Good evening, everyone. Eric Hoover, Emergency Management Director for Ravalli County.
Thanks, Eric. Let's see. I've got Dar Palin. Dar is a resident of Kootenai Creek Village and has been participating with Fire in the Root from the beginning. And just got a grant from the Bitterroot RC&D. Yes. Yay. Next, I got John McKenna.
Good evening, everyone. John McKenna from home with Victor Fire.
Awesome. Thanks, John. I've got Matt Young.
Hey, good evening. Matt Young, Deputy Fire Staff Officer on the Bitterroot National Forest.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Matt. Next, I've got Paige.
Good evening, Paige Boyer. I'm retired Forest Service Fire Management and live near Stevensville.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Paige. And last but not least, Thayer.
Hey, everybody, Thayer Jocks, Hamilton Unit Forester, DNRC.
Awesome. Thanks, Thayer. So some objectives that we have for tonight, we'll go through another run through of the presentation and check in about our letters of support that we've received, how that's all going. And then review and identify any materials that we may want to bring to the commissioner meeting, any other resources that we could provide. And then we'll discuss Judy's landscaping project. She created some verbiage to provide for landscapers. So we'll review that and want to give her the go ahead or not on that project so she can get that started. And then we can discuss if there's any other projects or ideas we want to work on at this time. And yeah, I think that should cover it. So does anyone have any updates at this point that they want to discuss? DNRC, there, Matt, any updates?
The Builders Industry Association Home and Ranch Show. We're gonna be
Yep.
there this weekend.
Yep.
Bridget, Anna, I and Judy would love to have some help representing. You don't have to. You can just smile and wave and hand out things if you'd like, but yeah, right. But we'd love to have that support. But it's also great because it's a good place for two-way communication. Talking with homeowners, but also builders and people working in the industry. It's great to hear what their concerns are and what their questions might be. And if you don't know the answer, it's okay. We will find out an answer to a question. So it's really just opening that door for communication and getting information that we have. So it's from 4 to 7 on Friday and 9 to 4, I believe, on Saturday. Did you grab this?
The Realtor Board will also have a booth down there too, if you want to put some information over there. And I'll be there from 6 to 7 on Friday.
And we're right next to each other.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
right next to you. So yeah. You're buying us lunch, I'm pretty sure. It's here. So, yeah. But, and I do have information from it too, if you want that.
Yes. So Home and Ranch, that is this week. Shall we, you guys ready to do the run through of the presentation?
Sure, before we.
Hey, Bridget,
Yes.
before you guys jump into the run through, I was just going to share a couple things from the Forest Service side, if you have a minute.
Yeah, thank you.
Since we met last, we did get our FAB Joint Chief proposal, the fire adapted Bitterroot proposal we had put in, approved, and was selected for funding. That's gonna start a 3-year funding cycle on this first year that brings in an additional $776,000 $776,000 for treatments. It's all directly related to treatments underneath those priority fire sheds that we presented. I think that was December. But anyway, so there's that. And it also brings in a funding source for NRCS and treatments associated with that. So there will be, that has happened. And we still don't have the actual money in hand yet, but we were selected for it. So that one we're feeling pretty confident to actually come through. There is still talk of the CFLRP proposal that we had put in being funded as well, which would be an additional 1.6 million for FY22. And if that is selected, that's a 10-year money string that will help us accomplish on both Forest Service ground and non-Forest Service lands. It's all related to the infrastructure bill and the chief's 10-year strategy that basically wants to double our fuels treatments in 5 years and triple it in 10. agency-wide and across all lands and landscapes. So those are some big things that just happened here in the last month. So I thought I'd share that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations too. And
Yes.
I do have, if anybody wants to look at it, I have a copy of the initial fire adapted bitter root proposal. The timeline will be a little bit different. And that might be something that Matt, if you'd be willing to present on that a little further down the line, maybe after we get past the commissioners. Would you be willing to present to us, I guess, the specifics of fire adapted bitter root, what the projects are, where they are, and that?
You bet. Yeah, you're just a little hard to hear, Kristen, but I did copy what you were saying there, presenting on what that fire adapted Bitterroot project looks like and some potential alterations in timing that we may be looking at implementing related to that. You bet.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
I've never been told I'm hard to hear.
You're normally not. If I was in the room, it wouldn't be a problem. So
Sorry, you're like, oh.
thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. All right. Hi, thanks for coming. Oh. How we feeling?
Okay.
Should I get my timer out?
Tell me when.
Do we want to provide a tiny bit of background since we do have some new faces?
Yes.
Really quick.
That's probably a good idea. So just for those new faces here, Fire in the Root Council has recently been working towards presenting to the commissioners to request their support for our guiding and initiating of the Community Wildfire Protection Plan update. So we're in the very beginning stages just now, just creating a presentation, determining what resources we may need to provide the commissioners with. We've also been reaching out to various groups, organizations, individuals to request for letters of support to provide the commissioners. So our current Community Wildfire Protection Plan is from 2006. There was an update in 2009 that was not signed. So we are currently operating off the 2006 version. And there's a lot of good things that can come out of community wildfire protection plans, with ours being so out of date. We figured this was a perfect opportunity for Fire in the Root Council to get some action done and kind of create a guide for us to operate through as we move forward. So does that bring up any questions at this point for anyone? Did I forget anything or miss anything?
Well, what we've done is basically put a short presentation together to present to the county commissioners. And that's on March 10th, right?
Yes, at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
2 o'clock.
Yes.
So that's basically what we've been working on, is trying to get that presentation together and make it short. And then after that presentation, there'll be any questions from the commissioners, or I guess from the audience, whoever's there.
Yeah.
You know, the questions will be to the commissioners, and then the commissioners would probably revert to one of us to answer the question specifically. So
Absolutely.
if they don't have the answer.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Board of Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss the Community Wildfire Protection Plan with you. We're going to give you the bottom line up front on this presentation. First of all, the 2006 Bitterroot Community Wildfire Protection Plan is out of date and in need and is in need for an update to reflect the current conditions since 2006. Fire and Route Council intends to update the 2006 plan and has widespread support, including nearly all the entities that signed the 2006 plan. Grant funding is potentially available in 2022, this year, to provide financial resources to facilitate that update. But this requires local support, including you, the Ravalli County Commissioners. In addition, the county will be competitive for Infrastructure Act funding and private and state forestry and forest action plan grant programs to include all these programs. We are here this afternoon to provide background information on the Fire and Route Council, Community Wildfire Protection Plan characteristics, benefits, and requirements, and to request a letter of support from you, the commissioners, to help secure funding, grant funding for the update process. So the Fire and Route Council. You know, this Fire and Route Council is a local collaborative focused on implementing projects and coordinating wildfire preparedness and prevention activities throughout Ravalli County. So the mission statement for Fire and Route is the Fire and Route Council's mission is to promote and facilitate the long-term reduction of risk from wildfire and the adaptation to wildfire by communities and residents throughout Ravalli County. Fire and Route started in 2018, and we're gaining momentum to accomplish this mission. So who are the participants on the Fire and Route Council? Well, we have participants from Montana DNRC, U.S. Forest Service, Bitterroot National Forest, Ravalli County Fire Departments, all of them, all 13 fire districts, Ravalli County Office of Emergency Management, Ravalli County Sheriff's Office, the Bitterroot Health Department.
Bitterroot Health is the new name for Marks Field.
Oh, Bitterroot Health Memorial Hospital.
Yeah, but
Okay,
it's their
Okay.
AKA now.
okay. The NIH Rocky Mountain Laboratories, Montana Board of Realtors,
That should be Bitterroot Valley Board of Realtors.
okay.
Up one.
Did you stop the clock?
I did.
Okay.
This one,
Bitterroot Valley.
Bitterroot Valley,
Bitterroot Valley Board of Realtors.
yeah, Bitterroot Valley Board of Realtors, the Bitterroot Building Industry Association, local insurance agents, and local residents. So the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. This plan is basically a community-based plan. It identifies and addresses the risk of wildfire in the county, Ravalli County specifically. It determines the risk, the values at risk within Ravalli County. And it's a roadmap of clear actions for the communities and local landowners to address wildfire risk. National standard of practice since 2003, when the Healthy Forest Restoration Act was signed into law. 2003 Healthy Forest Restoration Act provided for the development of a CWPP to give the Forest Service and BLM statutory incentives to consider the priorities of local communities that developed and implemented forest management and hazardous fuel reduction projects through the CWPP. So what are the benefits of the CWPP? One is to reduce social, economic, and environmental costs of wildfire. Identify community values and prioritize wildfire risk reduction. It's also to influence where federal agencies, the U.S. Forest Service and BLM, prioritize air fuel treatment. It brings together diverse interests to tackle local wildfire challenges and opportunities. It increases opportunity for resources and funding for mitigation activities. And we are not competitive without a CWPP for the funding. It increases community awareness and engagement of risk reduction. And it also provides for the education of folks in terms of wildfire risk reduction. So the Healthy Forest Restoration Act requires that community wildfire protection plans must meet 3 minimum requirements. It's got to show collaboration between local and state agencies in consultation with federal agencies and other interested parties. It has to identify and prioritize fuel treatments to reduce hazardous fuel in the wildland-urban interface. And it also recommends strategies to reduce the ignitability of structures. Those are the 3 main minimum requirements of the CWPP. So in defining the WUI, the wildland-urban interface in Ravalli County, that's going to be a part of the community wildfire protection planning process. And it'll address the conditions and criteria in determining the wildland-urban interface in Ravalli County. Thank you.
Nice. Got 7:35, even with a couple stops in there.
Yeah, we can cut her down more.
Yeah.
Little bit, but not too much. So is it time for questions and stuff?
Yep.
Boo, you saw it, Byron!
Yeah, so what else is
We
new?
gotta get them ready, right?
Like it.
You, out.
Did we want to do a consequences slide? We talked about that at the end, putting in that consequences slide. What if we don't? What if we don't update the CWP?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that idea, but it's, you know, if everybody thinks differently, then we don't have to do that either. But I think we have the time to leave.
So you could turn
Oh,
these,
this is great.
you could actually turn the benefits around and go, okay, if we don't get funding for this, then you can go down through each one of these benefits and reverse them.
Right.
I like that idea.
Basically, we are not going to prioritize fuel treatments because we're not going to have any funding to do that. And basically, we're not going to be increasing public awareness because we don't have the funding to do that, and so forth and so on. So you could take those and just switch them around if you think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Then to throw in Burroughs devil's advocate, the WUI definition.
I like how you mentioned it in there, just that would be a part of it. I did, Bridget and I met with our some of our fire staff at DNRC and also the county co-op coordinator, and they really stressed the importance of defining WUI as leverage, as an opportunity for the county. They recommended that it be pretty clear in our presentation that we say, this is an opportunity for you to define your movie. It is our presentation. That was just a recommendation. They support us wholeheartedly, whatever we choose to do. But they did think it would be good to stress that. You put it in there, I like that. I could see us maybe putting it in the bottom line up front and tagging that in as a bullet saying defining, it will provide the county an opportunity to define their WUI, which creates leverage and a pathway for cross-boundary work, maybe.
So throw their WUI question back into them.
Right, right.
Well, and the other thing that came to me is we need your help, and that just not to the commissioners, but to everybody. We need the public support and the commissioner's support and everybody's help in developing this CWPP.
Right.
It's not going to be just our council doing it.
Right.
You know, we'll have public meetings, we'll have opportunities for people to interject their thoughts. And then from there, the CWPP will evolve, the WUI will get defined.
Well, can you flip back to the bottom line up front, Anna? We could add that, like where we ask for, and let's see, request a letter of support from the commissioners to help with the grant funding. You could say that too, right there. And, you know, and as a side note, we're asking for your involvement in this process as we go on. But yeah, and
It fits in really well in this, in the benefit where wherever we had it. Because that's where we agreed to put it last time.
I think it fits best. Yeah, right there is where it fits the best.
This is your writing, so you go.
I know, yeah. When we talked about it before, we talked about 3 minimum requirements. And we reversed the order of,
right, so we can put, yeah.
so the WUI would be the last thing. And then the wording that I wrote it down the way we agreed to it, or the way we discussed it. Defining that WUI will be part of the CWPP planning process and will address the conditions and criteria in determining the WUI in Ravalli County. Now, we could add this, the part you just added a minute ago, that we need everyone's help in
Right
doing that.
there, yeah, input.
And it's not just developing the WUI, it's developing the CWPP.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. That's those are the 3 requirements.
Yeah.
And I think it fits a lot better here than it does in the bottom line up front, because the bottom line up front is, what are we doing?
Right.
We're asking for help. We're telling them who we are. And
Yeah. No, perfect. I think that would be great.
When that first statement says it has show collaboration and it lists everybody. So you could almost expound on that.
That would be
the
a good
collaboration
place to,
and go, we need everybody's help.
Yeah.
that's a really
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
So that's the place to add, just need everyone's help.
Right.
And then when you get to the identify and prioritize field treatments and the WUI, then put this one.
Right.
Could you just do define, identify, and prioritize field treatments to reduce?
Oh, define,
You could, I think-
define and identify and prioritize. Is that what you said?
Define, identify, and
So
prioritize.
define, identify. Right.
We're
Defining
not,
is
so we're not
identifying.
defining fuel treatments, we're defining the
You're
WUI.
defining the
So we
WUI.
need to restructure the sentence if we want to.
Reduce hazard in the CWPP defined wildland urban interface.
That's.
Keep
yeah,
it
that's-
short, keep
that
it
works.
simple.
Then you're telling them it's defined in the CWPP.
In the CWPP.
So for those that are
define-
kind of new to what we're doing here, one of, or the primary reason why The 2009 CWPP was not signed, was a fear of that WUI designation, putting a line on a map that would open residents up to either losing their insurance because they were in that WUI designation, or opening them up to increased regulation from the state level or outside. And so that was what precipitated that not being signed by the commissioners, which is why we are doing this presentation and really reaching out to the commissioners, because we don't want to find ourselves in that same position of doing an update to the CWPP and not having that support. We must have that local support. It's critical. And so that's why this, and also why we're paying extra special, I guess, attention to addressing the WUI in the presentation.
Has there been any input, like have we received any, I guess, a pulse on where the commissioners stand or information that has been being distributed to them at this point, or is there opposition that is developing in the background?
Not that I've heard.
No, we just had that one, we had that one short meeting with Burroughs. And you were there, right? Oh.
I think as the meeting gets closer and gets on the docket, where the ones who are watching the commissioner meetings will see it, then that's where we might hear, or they would hear, because I think that's what they were waiting for, as to whether they might change the venue to a larger venue, if once it's published and people are looking at it, if they start hearing concern, then they'll move it.
Yeah, it'll be dependent on a couple of different groups that may raise their heads.
Yeah.
Do we know who those groups are? And have we-
Stand Up for Freedom group out of Stevensville.
Just have we reached out? We didn't hear from you.
Yeah, is that?
Wait,
what
is
you're saying?
there, is it, I guess like, sorry, I can't tell.
Well, yeah, if it comes into where there's any possibility of any further government regulation and anything, they're totally against it.
Yep.
Gonna come down the same fight, but in some ways they helped us in the initial wastewater reg draft, got them to back off on their, what they're gonna try and force down to start with, and we wound up working another year and a half on the reg before they did implement them, and they came out better than what they were trying to do. But most of where they were involved with the after the wastewater reg was more on the addressing on the COVID situation. And just the government control over basically what they felt was their life.
Right.
And so that's depending on how they perceive the wild and urban interface is where the problem may come into.
So.
But if it comes through with the right information out there, that right now it's not, doesn't really matter right now, because the way the insurance companies are rating their properties, the WUI doesn't come into that big of an effect anymore.
Right, but they're not gonna know that going
Right.
into this.
So that's something that could
Right.
cause it to go to a bigger venue. Or it could come down to like the second reading of the wastewater reg, where they plan for a big crowd.
Nobody.
3.
Right. I don't know, I'm totally great with reaching out to any group and being transparent, but I also don't want to open a can of worms if it doesn't need to be open and shake.
Yeah, right now, I don't know if we want to open that can of worms with.
Okay. One thing that does raise, that we probably should emphasize in here too, is the CWPP is a non-regulatory document.
Yes,
It's
that-
And actually, that should be right in the
I think
text.
it's right up.
but no, you didn't.
Oh,
Byron was going from my handwritten notes. I brought all those edits into the version that I sent that we're looking at,
got it.
but
It's not on the notes.
but he had to interpret my chicken scratch on
There it is,
on
right
the
there,
fly,
right there, it's
so-
on that one. there it is.
Non-regulatory was an important take home from last time.
And that is not the CWPP.
Wonder if
is
you
not
need to
gonna
highlight
automatically
that word.
put building code in
No,
Valley
no,
County.
not at all.
And people, they still need to realize that we do have building codes. They're just not county codes. but they-
Right.
there are
I think
still
if you
codes and
highlight it, I
regulations.
think highlight non-regulatory, guys.
Yeah.
I think you need to highlight it, because then it'll
Well,
pop out at them.
Make it bold.
Make, yeah, they're just highlight it, but
Yeah,
bold
there
it
might
and
be a
make it,
comma between it too.
Bold it,
Community-based
maybe
there you go.
regulatory plan. And
I
take out-
suggest you start that phrase with a non-regulatory plan that is community consensus based.
Oh, yeah,
Nice.
that sounds great, John, good job.
Yeah, just reverse those too.
Yeah.
A non-regulatory plan that is community-based.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Community consensus based. I think we need to emphasize consensus, that it's not just a top-down driven plan, that it's, we're not,
But it might
Not
not
just
be
take-
consensus. Consensus is a loaded word, because it
Yeah,
might,
it
to
is.
some mean, yeah, we don't want to put consensus. in my
Community-based,
opinion.
yep, that's good.
And lowercase on
Lowercase.
community. As long as we're editing it.
But-
Yeah, that's better.
Like that.
Doesn't get lost in the middle.
Yeah, awesome job.
Yeah.
I know we say it in the benefits section somewhat. It says reduce social, economic, and environmental costs of wildfire. But isn't the real bottom line for doing this planning is to protect lives, property, and any other values at risk?
So after you say all of that, say that. Say
Say
that,
all
the real bottom line, the real main benefit
So we're
is
gonna,
to save lives, and the consequence of not doing this,
Lives will be at risk and blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's, I think that would be great.
so we're gonna restructure this benefit slide to be benefits and consequences of not,
Yeah,
right? Because if we're just gonna reverse it,
yeah,
there's no point in tagging it on the end and
Exactly.
giving them the same list.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't know, doing that kind of sounds like we're starting an argument with ourselves. To try and anticipate some question and address it on a slide is, it seems like we want to just present things, all the positive things about
Keep
it.
positive, yeah.
And let, when people ask questions,
Let
if
the
they,
chips fall where they may.
if they wanna, throw some darts at it, then fine, but generally speaking, on these kinds of things, not in favor of starting an argument with ourselves. Oh, look, we don't do this, and this gonna happen, that's gonna happen. Just lay it out there, this is a good idea to do,
And here's the benefits, and yep,
try not to get too clever.
Yeah.
I think we have the opportunity of people in attendance to handle issues that arise as to the consequences of it not.
The consequences discussion occurred last time.
Yeah.
And I'm good with not having.
Yeah.
The only consequence I think we need to emphasize is if we do not have an updated CWPP.
we don't qualify
And
for
if we
grants,
don't have local community
Second
support, we're not gonna be competitive for funding.
period.
That's an important consequence for this group to understand. As
It
a-
is, but,
And that's in the
concerned
text.
about funding.
What's
When
that?
we talked to them, they weren't concerned about funding.
Oh, I
So
know.
that's where it's like, that is something we think, we know is incredibly important. But their concern is the ties to regulation that it might incur. And so, in my opinion, in us emphasizing the funding, They're like, yeah, because the funding's gonna have strings, which we don't want. Like, it's not the funding, it's, that's why I'm thinking the consequences might not be a bad thing to emphasize, because their role is to help protect the citizens.
Okay, but stop and think about it. If we don't get a CWPP sign, nothing's going to change from what it is right now.
Exactly.
That's it. Nothing's gonna change. It's gonna keep going on just like it is. People are gonna struggle to take care of their places, and that's it.
Maybe you just say that.
And I don't think you need to say it's a threat to life and property. I don't think we need to say anything else. It'll be just like it is right now, and the wildfires will come through, and fire's gonna happen, and roaring lions will happen, and that's that. That basically this is trying to be proactive to help it change, yeah.
We can just say that.
Yeah. That's the main ambulance, so I gotta figure out.
I agree with Rick that, we need to stay on the positive. And, the commissioners are going to be thinking throughout this presentation, what questions to ask. The audience is going to have the same thoughts going through their head, and we just need to let it happen. And then we've got the meat here to address some of those issues that may come up. One of the issues is going to be insurance. So if you're going to be there, or one of your cohorts is going to be there, that question can come forward, and we'll have an expert there to answer that question. So I think we'll just let it ride. Really.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Does anybody think differently? Any other suggestions or comments, especially in Zoom land, if you can hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, it's Dar. I had a couple of questions, and I just sent one of them, but I asked about specific funding, and somebody responded back that there are many grants that aren't available if the county doesn't have a current CWPP. So that answered that question. My other question would be, I think you should give a copy of this outline that Byron just presented to each commissioner, as opposed to just having it on the screen, because that'll give them something to refer to once the presentation is done. And then I saw Matt gave that introductory amounts of money that had become available for Raleigh County. Should we, or should you in your presentation give them some examples of the kinds of monies that would not be available if we didn't have the CWPP approved?
I will have that information. It's up to you guys if we want to build it in. Put it in there. I'll have the base infrastructure.
I don't think we want to build it in. I think
Okay,
that
just be
it's
ready.
on the list of
Yep.
questions, and I think you're the responsible party for having the answer prepared. And so I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then Matt, of course, presented primarily Forest Service, but interagency funds.
Yeah.
So, and I apologize, I haven't been here to tell this my first meeting, but this presentation to the county commissioners is just an introduction to this CWPP. Again, I mean, they're not, you don't expect a decision that day.
No, well, we're asking for a letter of support. So that's because there is funding that is going to be available through the DNRC to fund the update process, or part of the update process.
So what's your timeline to have the CWPP in place and the funding to be available to get the project started?
We're waiting on the funding to be, we know the funding is there and going to be available. We have to complete an RFP, a request, an application for that funding. Those stipulations have not been released yet, but we're expecting them in this spring. And so we don't have a specific timeline yet, but we just know it's coming. And
But spring this year.
yeah.
To start the plan
Yes,
process.
to
Get the funding to start the process.
And that's one of the stipulations is going to be, to get the funding, is going to be local support. Like they want specifically, they want to make sure that we have the commissioners on board and local government and entities.
So a lot of support from the commissioners, and I remember some of this, I remember the fight last night to some degree. The commissioners have to sign the CWPP, have to sign it. So
Yes.
they're signing their name as county commissioners that Ravalli County is going to accept this.
Yeah.
So do you expect a lot of public at this county commissioners meeting?
We don't know. They were.
I don't expect a lot of this one, Ron.
Okay.
Okay, this one's just one to ask for their support so we can go for grant funding. We haven't even started the process of going out to the communities, asking for input on redoing the CWPP. And the old CWPP was actually paid for by the Fires of 2000 funds that came through. And we funneled them through the RC&D is how we paid for the old one. And we don't have that funding source this time. So we've got to go through the state and try to get some funding from the state to actually come up with the plans to hold the public meetings in order to get the maps drawn, in order to do that.
And the reasoning behind my question is this, is if the reason that this failed before is because of the opposition.
Yes.
And you guys get that.
Yeah.
And so, how do the county, when the county commissioners, they're gonna start taking heed. And you guys understand where the opposition is gonna come from, it's private property rights, it's regulatory people that are anti-regulatory. And so, as a group, convince the county commissioners and be able to answer those questions, that it is anti-regulatory. And who's gonna answer those questions? This, I'm not expecting an answer to this, but, from what I see is you all work for the government. And so.
We're here to help.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just be really careful of that because, you got that wall of resistance right off the bat, just because, and I'm not, and I'm only trying to put out the forewarnings, and if we don't think about that, nothing gets passed, and you end up right back to heaven.
Yeah.
So just some thoughts.
No, really good point. Yeah.
Really thinking about that county commissioners meeting, and at every point in time, if you're not aware and able to answer the question that this is non-regulatory. They don't care about funding.
Right.
Somebody said before, funding doesn't matter. I don't care. If you get no money, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Just don't step on. Yeah. So just my thoughts. As I'm hearing this conversation.
No, and those are good points. And we've created a document with questions that we think might come up and point individuals from the council that will be the point person to answer those. And those are big questions in there, but also that, those of us who are with the federal or state governments are not presenting. That's why Byron is presenting and kind of is helping, and we're trying not to be
Front and center.
front and center, because we recognize that. But those are really good points, and if my mouth gets us in trouble, like I have said, I need maybe some duct tape to come, but it's really good points to hear and make sure that we de-emphasize too. I guess that government role and push.
This is a community project. It's not a government project.
No.
That's a really, really big.
Yes.
This is yours.
Yeah.
Again, from what I can see, based from both builders, realtors, and dealing with public on it, when they're looking at regulatory ends, is the building codes, which, again, Ravalli County has no specific building codes. They go back to the state, which are basically international building code regulations. So there are still codes. It's just educating that, yes, there are codes, whether the county does not have them themselves, specific codes themselves, there are still building codes. So that's part of where from my end, the Builder Association. But some education on that part. Yeah, there still are code, but no, it's not gonna make there's not gonna be something come in and specify because of this plan or the WUI or whatever, that you have to have cement board siding.
Right.
In other words, we need to convince the public, this is not about putting additional onerous
Right.
codes on people, telling them what they should and shouldn't do.
Codes could be recommended in a CWPP.
We
but
don't
it's
dare.
Non-binding and
We don't,
non-regular.
yeah, we don't dare do it in this one.
No, it's not up to us.
Yeah.
It's up to the community. But so
That
if
won't
there's
happen.
no desire for that. here,
That won't happen
it
here,
won't
Kristen.
happen.
I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not gonna happen here.
No, and it probably won't, but I'm just saying, we can't say it will not. We cannot say that, because then we're determining what goes in there, and that's not our goal.
But it's just, that's what goes into it is based on.
What the
input
community,
from
yeah, exactly.
The
I'll
community.
I'll tell you one regulation that is almost certain to come down. And it can't happen fast enough is escape plan. You know, all subdivisions now need to have an evacuation plan. And just ask the people in downtown Boulder, Colorado, if, you know, that's an important thing. That's people in Denver. You know, here in the valley, Highway 93 is the only way in and out, more or less. Scalpel, if you got clearance. And so people are, you know, these subdivisions are coming in, getting kind of crowded. And so this is it's gonna be kind of part of the civil engineering plan.
But that's coming down at the state level now too.
Yeah.
I was just at a state realtor board meeting, so there's regulation coming down at the state level that are gonna get back in countywide.
But it's not gonna be a
But
regulation.
it's not gonna be,
in the community
it's not
wildfire
going to be
protection
something.
plan.
that
No
goes into
regulation.
here.
It's a non-regulatory
Yeah.
document, so there will not be regulations in it.
That's
Period.
right,
And
period.
the questions or conversations that I've had surrounding it and the regulatory piece of it is, I always throw the question back at it, it's like, who would regulate it?
Exactly.
Like which entity is responsible for regulating the requirements that are in place from the CWPP? Like, you don't have an entity to regulate, there's nobody out there to
Right.
do anything with that, right?
What I'm getting at
Regulation.
is, that the community wildfire protection plan should, you know, maybe we show a little bit of courage and say, no, the CWPP, we as a community need to come together and recognize that we need to have evacuation plans to get people the hell out of the way when, you know, something like what happened in Boulder happens here. I've got it, you know, these canyons out here, you get 70-mile-an-hour northwest winds blowing down this valley. Somebody fires off a Roman candle in the brush pile up here, and guess what? You've got 10 minutes to get out of your subdivision. It just went in off the highway at Stevensville.
That's
And-
definitely often in CWPPs, there's a recommendation
Right.
for HOAs to have an evacuation plan. It would not be a mandatory thing because
Right.
it's non-regulatory, but yeah, they often cover that.
Right.
So, and that it's all community directed.
Basically, it's an advisory document
Yeah.
is what it boils down to, just like the home assessments that you folks go out and do. You let them know what they need to do to harden their home, and then it's up to them. Not a regulation. You're just informing them that here's where you're at danger. If you do this, you're gonna lessen your risk. If you don't do it, you're still at risk. So it's just an advisory document. That's all it is. And then,
It's an educational
Yeah.
document. It's an educational piece.
We can build, and they should have accountability and timelines built into them. So like ones that get work done have accountability, have accountability and a timeline involved. And so if there is, curriculum developed and introduced into K-6 classrooms, well, it's not gonna happen if you don't identify who's responsible to do that, who's accepted that responsibility, right? And so that could be Fire in the Root Committee decides to do that, Bitterroot RC&D and the initial CWPP, that Fire Smart Wagon. And the curriculum, they developed a curriculum. So you do have, the signatures on there are saying, we commit to supporting this and doing what we can, and you can build in accountability. This will be reviewed. If it's not done, you're not gonna be penalized, but it's gonna be reviewed. And if you didn't do it, it says it in black and white. It's kind of obvious you didn't do it. So a good CWPP has that, because otherwise it has, like, why are we doing it? The idea is, we want to educate, but we want action done on the ground. We want education in the schools, or we want homeowners to understand what's going on, and we need to make sure to specify whose job, who's going to be doing it. The Forest Service, the DNRC, and the VFDs are going to be conducting home assessments. They are going to have blah, 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 whatever the community decides, but it will have accountability built in, just not, there's no penalizing, there's no, and everybody accepts it, like you don't get nominated to do something that you don't want to do. Does that make sense? So.
Yeah, to a point. I mean, you can say, yes, this is the education plan associated with this CWPP. And here's who's gonna do it, and here's how it's gonna be done, and here's when it's gonna be done. Okay, that's fine. You can say the same thing about volunteer fire departments, DNRC and others doing home inspections. We agreed to do 25 a year in this fire district and 13 in this one, and so on and so forth. And so you can hold people accountable for doing those. But you can't force the landowners to do the things that are recommended by the inspections.
Right.
That's where it tips from action to regulation and enforcement. And I think that's the line we always have to stay on the advisory side of, and not the regulatory side.
Right.
And the same thing with the evacuation plan. You can say that the volunteer fire departments will contact every HOA in their district and advise them that an evacuation plan should be part of their HOA. But we can't make them do that.
That's right.
Right.
So
Good point.
so that's the line, I think, right there.
When it comes down to it, I mean, the document is an advisory document to county commissioners to.
Right, the county commissioners or the
They have
state.
the choice to make whether or not that.
Right.
Right.
that
They want to
regulation
take it
plan
to.
Right, they
is-
can make,
And that puts it in their hands to
Right.
make.
right,
those
they can
decisions.
change the building codes,
Yep.
but we can't.
Right.
And the state can change codes, but we can't. We can advise,
Right,
but
that's why it can recommend that there be a code or a policy. but
we can
they
point out the advantages of having
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a recommendation that there should be one, but we certainly can say that there are advantages to having one.
Yes.
But we can't, this is a non-regulatory document that can't establish that. It has to be the county commissioners or the state. Those are the two regulatory bodies.
And advisement on new construction on the interface as far as using fire resistant materials, but again, not regulating it.
Right. Right. Be really smart if you built your house out of something that doesn't burn down. You know, in case you haven't thought about that,
Yeah.
here it is in black and white.
Don't put
Yeah.
cedar shakes on your roof.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's, what was that? There was a subdivision in Deer Park in Washington State, north of Spokane. And this was a big deal in the early 80s when that subdivision, when the subdivision burned down. Now we burn down towns and it's only on the news cycle for a day. But it was a big deal for that subdivision, and they had a requirement. Every building had to have a cedar shake roof. And then after that, all the rebuilding and everybody else had to get a fireproof roof. I mean, they changed their covenants right now. So, but it wasn't because the state of Washington or the county, whatever county
The
that is.
developer that put it in. I
Yeah.
see that all the time right now. I'm dealing with a client up on property outside of Lakeside that the covenants actually have specified the type of roof, and it won't allow you metal.
We have a number of drainages in Missoula County that are high risk ones, and they.
Windy Wednesday. It was it 91?
Yes.
Okay.
91.
I remembered it was Windy Wednesday. I just didn't remember the decade.
All right.
Nobody in charge of any.
Oakland went.
I'll bring it back in. Do we have any Zoom comments? Anyone on Zoom have anything to add?
Yeah, there were several.
No, I'm just kind of listening here, and I think Byron did a good job on presenting that. So I don't have any other input.
Hey, this is Eric. I just wanted to circle back to Dar's earlier comment about providing the PowerPoint slides to the commissioners. If we get those to them prior to the meeting, they would be able to post those on their agenda as well as review them and have it available for the public to view. So if it's something we want to put out and have, information for people or the commissioners that may develop some questions, that's an option.
Awesome. Thank
And,
you.
make a note, the ones for the commissioner should be notes pages.
This is John. I have a question for Eric. Would it be advisable to, I agree that I think it'd be advisable to give the commissioners a copy of the presentation so that they can refer to it when the presentation's going on and afterwards for the questions. I'm not so sure it would be advisable to give it to them before the meeting. Hand it out at the time of the meeting. Just a thought.
Yeah, and I think, John, either one of those is an option. I wasn't trying to recommend that. I was just throwing it out. And I've seen it done both ways where they are brought in, a printed copy of the PowerPoint slides at the meeting or provided beforehand. So I kind of agree with you. There's probably benefits to either way. And in this case, it might be better just to do the hard copies at the meeting.
Yeah, based on my experience in dealing with boards and commissions, and I would advise we do that.
I agree also on that. As soon as you shut the presentation down, the video, they'll be wanting to have something like that to refer to the paper copy. So I think that's a good idea.
Awesome. Yep. So just provide hard copy.
Hard copy at the meeting.
Yep. Not before.
No advance.
I don't think we need to invite potential problems. Yeah, you have to get it far enough in advance, they publish it, then we were inviting potential problems.
Let's just take it as it comes.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Let's see. So any last comments about the presentation?
If you think about all the issues we brought up here this evening, it still comes right down to protection of life, property, and all the values of risk.
So that's
all it is.
That's
You
part
know,
of
that's
my.
all we're trying to do. Anything we bring up, that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah.
What page that you want?
Yeah, that was my.
And I think Byron mentioned a key word that I think is worth repeating several times during the presentation, that this plan is simply advisory. I know we make the statement non-regulatory, but I think it bears a repeating a couple of times.
Thank you, John. Okay. So letters of support update. Everyone in green is who we've gotten support from so far. I was at the last All Valley Fire Council meeting, and it was determined that we'll get one letter of support from the All Valley Fire Council. I'm gonna make sure we have it. It might be a challenge, but I have Sula's letter of support. She gave it to me at that last meeting. It's hard to get a straight answer sometimes, or an answer at all. So.
Well, they said they were gonna do it, and then when I
Yeah.
contacted a couple of them this last week, I talked to Rex, and I got Charlie's.
I
and
typed them all for him. I had Rex's ready to go and all of them. I was told no, that they're gonna do the one from the
That's
All
what
Valley.
that's what he told me, and Charlie just signed it, but that was before the All Valley.
Keep Charlie's, because you might need it.
I gave it, yeah, I
Yeah.
scanned it.
Yep.
and-
Yep.
and it has it
I have a
now.
bet on this one.
Well, we'll have it before, and I'll make
You'll
sure
need
of
to
it.
do it.
Yes.
You'll need to do it,
Yeah,
dear.
which is fine. It is what it is, as long as they truly support it. That's what matters. So.
So is this an indication the VFDs are not too interested in supporting it?
No, it's a total
It's an organizational
additional,
issue.
that's right, yeah.
That's charitably, it's an
Yeah.
organizational issue.
It's a power play amongst them all. Yeah.
For background on these letters of support, we are, because we know we're going for this funding that requires local support. And we also have the commissioners meeting. We thought it would be two birds, one stone sort of thing to get letters of support from stakeholders that would be involved in the CWPP process and/or are involved with the council to show their support for doing an update for the CWPP. And so our goal is to bring them and show them to the commissioners, and we have these entities support. It also will need them for.
You wouldn't be needed here if they didn't have your
apply for the
support.
funding. So that's what this is, the letter of support.
Thank you. So.
CSKT has committed, I just don't have it, they're waiting on the signature. They have said that, yes, they will support and.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Bitter RC&D, I assume we'll get one from you guys one day. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so we've gotten letters of support from the Bitterroot National Forest, the Conservation District, Hamilton Unit, DNRC, the Ravalli County Sheriff's Office. I've got one from Sula, the Rural Fire, Rocky Mountain Labs, Westgate, or Montana Westgate Realty, Iron Horse Athletic Club, Kootenai Canyon Village Homeowners Association, Kootenai Creek, excuse me. And yeah, so those are the letters of support we have received thus far. And hopefully we'll continue to get those letters and have them all before March 10th.
Do we have any gaps? Do we have anybody that you've talked with that is not sure or would like more information or?
I've got almost all of mine covered, and have not had any questions. I met with the Conservation District on the 25th, and let them know about what we're working on and everything. And haven't heard from Bitterroot Health. I will reach back out again. And then, have you spoken with the Bitterroot Water Forum?
I made it out.
Awesome.
So
Appreciate that.
There's a Heather, the executive director is, and so I got.
Yes. Yes, understandable. Awesome. And if you need any, if they want one of us to come talk or something like that, just let me know.
I talked with Heather about this about a month ago.
Okay.
She was
Awesome.
like, oh, yeah, sure. They have to run it by the board. And then she went on.
Of course. Awesome.
Bridget, what do you think about maybe at the Bitter Valley Board of Realtors Directors meeting in on the 16th?
16th?
Say about 10:30 to 11.
Okay.
And just give them an update and then request letter support then,
Absolutely.
and I'll get it on the agenda.
Perfect. I appreciate that.
Both Missoula and Ravalli Electric wants.
Awesome. Has anyone else had any issues or anything thus far? Come up?
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Okay. So I had a very long sheet full of words and all things that we don't want to read. So kind of an example, general flyer to provide as information if there is the public. Do we like something along this lines? Is this more palatable for people? Still too many words?
Okay, no, that's good.
No more words.
Okay. I like it.
One page.
Yep.
One page, one side. Big print, lots of pictures.
Do we need more pictures?
No.
Okay.
That's okay. Just
Okay.
No more words.
No more words. Yep. I had also, I have started a draft because the original document went into some other, let's see, some other questions such as, is the CWPP a legal document or policy? Will there the hazard assessment in the CWPP be used by insurance companies? That was in the original document. And I'll upload this here. I'll also send it out. I created another document with a few of the other things
We
in
can do
case.
frequently asked questions.
Ex-
And we'll just
yes.
start compiling that and that can be on the web.
Okay.
Doesn't have
We
to
do
be
it on
in
the
print.
backside.
What's that?
You could do the FAQ on the backside of it, because you've got a whole piece of paper and they don't have to turn it over, but we can direct them.
Or it could
to
just
where
be a
they have
separate sheet too. I was thinking of separate sheet.
Yeah. Are you gonna be posting this anywhere? Then it defeats the purpose of if you're gonna, if someone's gonna have it for any reason. post.
Right, right.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So,
Did we mention that the Fire Alert Council has a CWPP tab now underneath the council? So if folks are interested, you can push them to the CWPP tab. It's on fireandalert.org.
Yep.
And this, we could post this stuff, and if anyone has any
Yeah.
suggestions on how to make that better, just let us know.
yeah, absolutely. Open to any and all recommendations. So just let me know. Are there other materials we want to provide during the meeting. Yes.
So just found out that Perry Bacchus of Valley Republic is retiring.
Oh, no.
Oh, really?
No,
Yes,
no.
I don't remember when, but it may be a good idea if it's before April. It may be a good idea to get with him before he retires and get something in the paper
Yeah.
on what this effort's all about. And I wish I could remember when he's going to retire. Seemed like the end of March, but so it may be real timely to get Perry to do something for us
Nice.
after the commissioner meeting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Like that.
after, so right after.
And he could even contact one of the commissioners and talk to them
Yeah.
and get some words in the article too.
Yeah.
Maybe you get him to have the meeting.
Maybe,
He's a great voice.
yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you for that. Let's see. Is it where, so we do have some materials that we provide during our public outreach events. Something, we have a large poster board that has the Montana wildfire risk assessment and shows Ravalli County in bright red. We have a large poster of the home ignition zone. Is it worth bringing other visual materials for people to look at?
For the
Point
commissioner
to,
meeting?
yeah,
I can
No,
say
I
depending on
say-
where it's at. If it's at First Interstate Building, yes. If it's in the commissioner's meeting room, no.
Exactly.
Okay.
If they get enough interest to change the venue, then change the material.
I like
If
that.
not, keep it simple.
Okay, good deal.
There is a room in the commissioner's meeting room to set up a lot of stuff.
Well, and if there are no more people there, they're not gonna go back and look at it. So why bring it?
Awesome. Perfect.
That's a
So,
hopefully not.
perfect. Okay, so last couple things. Judy did provide us with her final project and a bunch of recommendations for projects. Did we begin discussing the landscape one specifically last meeting, or just brought up the idea?
No, you just ask people to please read it. so that
Yes.
And provide comments in reply to all,
Yes.
but I got 0 comments. I don't know if anybody read it or if because the BCC list was so long, they just couldn't get it to go through. So I have no idea what anybody thinks about anything I propose. Except a few comments I got waiting for that. That's okay. Doesn't hurt my feelings. I just need to know where we are.
Well, the reply all does not work. Because there are too many names on it.
Right.
For the service providers. So we need a stripped down list or a different approach.
Okay, I'm open to suggestions,
I don't know what
recommendations. Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
yes, neither do I at this
We could
point.
get
but-
either a temp mail account, which I've done for large groups.
Mhm, mhm.
Or you can have one list of people that attend regularly in person and on Zoom, and the other list, because there's not 125 people in this room and on Zoom.
Right, right.
So the other people could be the additional list.
An information list.
Yeah.
Right. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, and I have started a MailChimp. It takes a long time to add contacts. So I got partway through adding contacts and then just haven't had the time to refocus back to that. Do you know, is replying all to that? Does it go through?
Oh, yeah, because it's a subscription service, so
Mhm.
you can send it to as many people as you want, over 100.
Right, we can, but can you, I've only used it as a newsletter, not as something that groups could communicate through. So I am not aware, even if I use MailChimp that you would be able to reply all and everyone would get that communication.
I don't know about that. I just know that
Right.
as the one who developed my chip mail and
Mhm.
sent my newsletter, I could get the responses, but I don't know. if
Right,
people
right.
reply.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, that's, I can look
In
into
the
that
short
too.
term, we've
It,
already-
it doesn't work with the reply all on MailChimp.
What did you say?
It doesn't work for the reply all on MailChimp. Yeah.
We've already divided our mailing list into two parts. Let's divide it into three. The regulars, the irregulars, and the information.
I like that.
And make sure the regulars doesn't exceed 100, which it won't.
They won't. And then regulars, irregulars, information.
Yeah, but that.
I like that.
We'll give you a special dispensation this time.
Yeah. And yeah, and then after, actually, I like that idea. And then I can create like, is everyone okay with me for as far as the regulars? Is it okay for me to provide each other your information and contact? Because I could create a list and emails and everything. And then everyone together can have that information. Okay, awesome. I think thus far I've refrained from it just sharing information, but I think we are at that point. We need to have that. So. And I can look into alternative ways for communication to communicate more easily as a group. Judy, do you want to briefly explain your landscape project idea and then?
Well, I had several projects and it sounds like you want to limit me tonight because we're running out of time to only the landscape project.
Oh, after our conversation, I thought you only wanted to discuss the landscape
Well, I
project.
still would like to know if anybody, what people thought about the other projects. But the one that has the highest timeline problem is the one where I'm suggesting that I propose making connections with all local landscapers to provide them with information about home ignition zone concepts. Pursue permission from managers of local nurseries, home improvement stores, and other places where decorative landscape art is sold, and post a sign at point of sale with a fire risk warning. It could be a sign that says a helpful message from your local firefighters. And then I sent you this one. Oh, it's
Yeah,
on
we
the
got it
screen.
on. Yes, we do.
That's a draft idea. And then we would also have a brochure on a post next to that for people to take to further understand what we're talking about when we're talking about the home ignition zone. Because spring is when people start getting new projects on the ground and people who have designs where they're gonna put landscape park right next to their house or their wood fence or their wood deck. I would think this would be a good idea to ask them to reconsider where they're putting that park. So what do you guys think about doing that, to try to steer us away from using bark next to the house so that perhaps even this year in 2022, we could potentially save somebody's house from burning?
I think it's a great idea. I say go for it. I'm happy to help and I think it's a great idea. So
I think it's a good idea. A useful edit might be to put a reference, a clear reference to the home ignition zone brochure. So that if you're just reading this sign, you know what you're looking for.
Right.
More specifically.
Yeah.
Find it, where to find it, yep, where they can find it on the web or something.
Yeah, a web address.
The
would
web
be a-
address at the bottom, just
Would be a really.
HIZ brochure is located at.
I would put the QR code.
Yep, or the QR code on there would be perfect, yeah, yep.
And then we ask
Yeah, decorative bark doesn't blow in, that's right.
They would leave out some of the brochures.
Right, and I found so far 12 landscapers in the Bitterroot. There are probably more, but those are the ones that I've found so far. And there's 6 nurseries so far. And Ace Hardware in Hamilton is the one I'm really going after, because that's where people who only want small quantities are gonna go. And so I hope that Ace will be open to doing this. I think the nurseries will be. I don't know about Ace because it's a business outside of Montana as well, and they may have.
But they're locally owned. And if you get the Stevensville one, you get Stevensville and Florence as a package because it's the same owner. So that might be worth doing.
Yeah.
What I would prepare, well, 2 things. I would take out the 3 and just say at least 5 feet away from your home.
Okay.
Just because it's clear and it's, most of that zone right now is, it's to 5 feet. But I also would maybe prepare an alternative that's a pro for like gravel or pea gravel, because I think you worded this really well, so it doesn't say don't use bark, it just says use it 5 feet away from your home. But they still may not want to put it out there because they may feel like it's dissuading people from purchasing bark. So you can provide, if they do, you provide them with an alternative and say, hey, would you then mind if I put, yeah, you just put next to gravel or stone or whatever, pavers, say, this is a great wildfire resistant option. Because, you know, especially if you place it adjacent to the home or within that first 5 feet from the home, this could prevent him from being. So
I was just trying to keep it short, but that is a good.
No, it's a separate sign. So if they resist this, because they're not gonna wanna say no to sales. And they don't, like the bark industry or sellers might not want anything that makes their product, well, not seen, you know, not seen as attractive. So I'm just saying, if you get flack from them, if they say, no, we're not really sure we wanna do this, say, would you be willing to do this? And it's a pro, you remove that one, and it's a pro for pea gravel, you're still getting the same message out there for something else, and you're pro something else. It's just a way to still get the message instead of no message. See what I'm saying? If they're reticent for this. So you just have the plan B.
Except that most of these sellers who sell this do not sell bark, or rather rock and other kind of chemical things. So, and I thought the people that I'm hoping to persuade, now that you guys are in agreement, it's worth pursuing. I think Hamilton Fire Chief and Bitterroot Forest Service Supervisor or somebody like that, who have credibility with the public. They're the people that are firefighters. I think if they were to sign their names, that would be.
You could go for Brad Moss, which is a fire warden for the whole county.
Right.
Yeah, at least for a while. He's talking about retiring too.
Yeah, he's gonna move.
He's tried to give over the scepter, but nobody's really grabbing it.
Yeah, so let's do it before you
Yeah.
retire.
Yeah.
Be
So,
more.
yep, that's a great idea.
So does anybody think that is not a good idea?
This is John. I have a couple of thoughts on this. I think it's going in the right direction, but I think 2 things. One, it's not just bark, decorative bark. There's also shredded mulch and wood chip mulch. So those are just as flammable and probably more flammable than the bark. So I wouldn't restrict it just to the term bark, because I think we need to address those other decorative mulches that are
Right.
flammable.
Yep.
The second thing is I'm a little concerned about the last statement because it kind of implies that as long as they don't have any shredded bark or bark mulch within 5 feet of their house, that the firefighters will bring an engine crew to protect their home in the event of a wildfire, because that's only one of the considerations we have when we decide where we're going to place structure protection crews.
So the last sentence should end after thanks for helping our firefighters stay safe, period.
Yep,
Yeah.
deliberately vague.
Okay. I will see if I can get those guys to sign it.
Awesome.
And Judy, I can help you create a QR code and work on some format graphics we can add to it. Like, do we want the fire and the logo on there?
We should, and we should have the website on there as well.
The most important thing, I think, would be the information about keeping flammable materials 100 feet out from the house.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Right.
Thanks for that input, John. And yeah, I think that sounds awesome. Thanks for being willing to be proactive and take on a project. If anyone is interested and or willing to help Judy, we had a few months ago identified 3 original committees. Education outreach was one of those, and Judy was, I think, one of our only volunteers to be a part of that. And this is one taking on this project. So if anyone wants to help out, we always, sure Judy would love help.
Yeah, we just gotta get it moving.
Yeah,
We wanna
yeah.
save some people this year.
Yes, absolutely.
So there are also other projects, if you guys wouldn't mind reading those and providing comments on those, we can address those at another time. And I noticed when you guys sent out your forest action plan, which I did not read prior to coming up with my projects. And there's a little bit of overlap there.
Mhm.
So at the time we go through that, maybe you can consider my other proposals.
Yeah, we can put
Absolutely.
it on the agenda for the March meeting. You guys want to do that? Talk about those. I think the key is that it's the limited capacity. And so it's focusing on too many things. We just don't have the hands to do it all. But let's
We're not opposed to projects.
right, yeah,
we gotta find the people.
Let's prioritize and see what the council would like to work on, but also let's have it not, like, let's have more hands to help you as
Mhm.
well, and us to do it, and also be able to still focus on.
Right, if we can't, if we can't do some of the things that I proposed quickly, at least I'd like them to be considered to be in CWP as projects.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That definitely will happen. Let's see.
I'm wanting to get this over.
Yeah, we are way over. I just want to give everyone a heads up. I have reached out to Kimberly Richardson from the Extension Office to see if she would be willing to help facilitate these meetings. As in this position, she's yeah, thank you, yeah. So, we're getting to the point where we need to I feel as though, I guess, my position should be more neutral and less biased, especially, as was mentioned, I do represent the DNRC. What we don't want to be leading this group. This group is collaborative. We want everyone else to have a say in it. And and we want it to be locally driven. So we're really getting to the point, you know, we started this whole thing, we've fostered it to a pretty good point. So now if we could step back, be seen more as a part of the group, be able to contribute less as a leader or trying to determine anything, because from the beginning, we've tried to express, we want this to be as collaborative as possible. We are not making decisions by any means as the state, federal, no one here is making individual decisions. So it is completely group-based. So I have a meeting with her on Thursday to kind of discuss our needs, what our mission is as Fire in the Root, to see if she'd be able to help out. And that way, you know, have a different face, more neutral face as well. So that is in the works. We'll see what happens. And I just wanted to let everyone know. Does anyone have any opposition to that at this point? Awesome. Perfect. Well, that covers everything and we went way over and I'm so sorry about that, but this was a wonderful discussion tonight. I think a lot of really good conversations happened, brought up a lot of good things we need to think about. So we'll continue getting those letters of support. I think we had just a couple edits to the presentation, but other than that, I think we're pretty much good to go on that. And yeah, thank you so much for coming tonight.